It all started with a simple encounter, a waitress, an arrogant millionaire, and a grand piano. But before we get into this, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. What began as a cruel attempt to put her down quickly escalated into a moment that left everyone stunned and egos crushed. You won't believe how she used her talent to turn the tables. It was a warm Friday evening, and the hum of conversations filled the air at the Oak Grove, an upscale restaurant nestled in the heart of Charleston, South Carolina. The clinking of glasses, the soft footsteps of servers, and the faint sounds of jazz from a corner piano set the stage for an evening of elegance and indulgence. Maya, a 25-year-old waitress with a quiet demeanor and a spark in her eyes, moved gracefully between tables, balancing plates and smiles. To most guests, she was just another staff member, but within her, she carried dreams much larger than the luxurious dining room surrounding her. Maya's passion wasn't serving tables, it was music. Since childhood, the piano had been her sanctuary, a place where she could pour out every joy, sorrow, and unspoken thought. But dreams alone don't pay the bills. Working long hours at the Oak Grove was a necessity, a stepping stone toward the music academy she dreamed of attending. Only a few knew about her talent, like the other restaurant staff, who occasionally caught her sneaking moments at the old piano in the back room during breaks. That evening, as the dinner rush slowed, the door swung open, and in walked Raymond Clark. Instantly recognizable, the wealthy entrepreneur made his presence known with an air of entitlement. Surrounded by a few well-dressed companions, Raymond exuded an aura of superiority. Known for his sharp remarks and love for spectacle, his entrance made even the most experienced staff stand a little straighter. Maya's coworkers exchanged knowing glances. Raymond wasn't an easy customer. He was the type who took pleasure in provoking others. For Maya, however, he was just another table to manage on a busy night. But this night would be anything but ordinary. As Raymond scanned the room, his eyes landed on Maya. There was something about her that seemed to catch his attention, a brief pause, then a sly grin. Maya could feel the weight of his gaze, but pushed it aside, focusing. Raymond wasn't finished with her. He had already decided that she was going to be his amusement for the night. Maya had grown up in a small town in Georgia, where dreams of success often felt as far away as the stars. Her mother, a single parent and dedicated nurse, worked double shifts to ensure Maya and her siblings had food to eat. Despite their modest means, music was always a constant presence in their home. Her mother's collection of old vinyl records and the out-of-tune piano gifted by a neighbor sparked Maya's deep love for melody. That piano became Maya's escape. While other kids played outside, Maya spent countless hours teaching herself to play. She imitated songs she heard on the radio and gradually moved on to classical pieces she found in secondhand music books. Her talent didn't go unnoticed. She performed at church, school recitals, and local community events, but no amount of recognition could erase the financial challenges standing between her and her dreams. By the time she turned 18, the harsh reality became clear. A professional music career would have to wait. Scholarships didn't come through, and family responsibilities demanded her attention. Maya reluctantly set aside her dreams of performing on the grandest stages, trading them for the practicality of earning a steady income. Still, she couldn't completely let go. The piano wasn't just a dream, it was part of who she was. When she moved to Savannah, Georgia, a few years ago, Maya applied for a job at the Oak Grove, drawn not only by the decent pay but also by the grand piano prominently placed in the corner of the dining area. Although she rarely had the chance to play it, knowing it was there brought her comfort. Music hadn't abandoned her, it was simply waiting for its time. That evening, as Raymond and his entourage settled into their seats, Maya approached their table, balancing a tray with practiced ease. Raymond ordered a top-shelf whiskey and delivered a joke loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Maya offered him a polite smile, her voice steady despite the strange energy radiating from him. "Maya, huh?" Raymond remarked, glancing at her name tag. "Sounds like someone with a few hidden talents." The comment caught her off guard, but she nodded politely and stepped away to place their orders. She didn't notice the knowing grin he exchanged with his companions or the way his eyes followed her every move. But Raymond wasn't just watching, he was plotting. And Maya would soon find herself at the center of a spectacle she never asked for. The evening unfolded like any other, with the buzz of laughter and the clinking of utensils filling the room. Maya kept her movements swift and steady, avoiding Raymond's gaze as much as she could while tending to other diners. She had dealt with difficult customers before, but something about him felt unsettling, not just obnoxious, but calculated. His presence loomed like a heavy shadow, making her stomach churn in a way she couldn't ignore. By the time the appetizers were served, Raymond was already in full performance mode, not the kind Maya expected. He commanded attention at his table, loudly recounting his tales of success and making cutting remarks about people who lacked ambition. His companions laughed obediently, while other patrons exchanged irritated glances. Maya tried to remain focused on her work, but as she returned to Raymond's table with a bottle of wine, he caught her off guard. "Tell me, Maya," Raymond said, his voice slicing through the room's chatter. "What do you do when you're not serving tables? Surely a young woman like you has dreams." Maya stopped mid-step, caught off guard. She hesitated before giving a measured response. "I play piano sometimes," she said softly, hoping to end the conversation quickly. Raymond's eyes lit up, and a sly grin spread across his face. "A pianist, huh? How intriguing. Why don't you treat us to a little performance?" Maya froze. It felt like the room had gone silent, with his words echoing louder than they should have. "Oh, I couldn't," she replied quickly, forcing a nervous laugh. "I'm just here to work tonight." But Raymond wasn't about to let her off the hook. "Nonsense," he boomed, his voice carrying across the restaurant. "There's a piano right there in the corner. Let's see what you've got. Surely a rising star like you isn't afraid of a little crowd." His entourage chuckled, clearly entertained by his antics. Other diners began to turn their attention to the scene, curious about the unfolding drama. Maya's chest tightened. She could feel their eyes on her, waiting for her reaction. The weight of silent expectations bore down on her. She wanted to say no, to walk away, but Raymond's challenge hung in the air, daring her to prove him wrong or crumble under the pressure. "I really shouldn't," Maya murmured, looking around for support, but even her co-workers seemed reluctant to step in. Raymond leaned back in his chair, swirling his whiskey, with a smug expression. "Ah, I see," he said mockingly. "All talk, no talent. That's a shame." The words stung, like a blow to her pride. Maya's hands tightened into fists at her sides. She wasn't the type to seek confrontation, but the way he dismissed her, like she was insignificant, like she was less, struck a nerve she couldn't ignore. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "Don't let anyone make you feel small, Maya. You're bigger than they'll ever see." A tense silence stretched between them. Maya glanced at the piano, then back at Raymond. His arrogant smirk dared her to take the bait, and despite her better instincts, she did. "Fine," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I'll play." The room buzzed with anticipation as Maya walked toward the piano, each step a mix of fear and determination. The dining hall seemed to hold its collective breath as she approached the elegant grand piano. The soft glow of the chandeliers above bathed her in light, isolating her from the hushed crowd. Her fingers quivered as she slid onto the bench, the polished keys gleaming like a silent dare. Behind her, Raymond reclined in his chair, radiating smug satisfaction, as if he had already claimed victory in whatever game he was playing. Maya closed her eyes briefly, inhaling deeply to steady herself. Her heart raced so fiercely that it drowned out her thoughts. This wasn't a friendly gathering or a supportive church recital. This was something else. It was tense. It was adversarial. But retreating wasn't an option now. She placed her hands gently on the keys, the cool surface grounding her. The first notes she played were tentative, soft, almost fragile. Someone shifted in their seat, and a faint cough echoed from the back of the room. Maya tuned it all out, her focus tightening as she let the music guide her. She chose a piece she knew intimately, a soulful rendition of Debussy's Clair de Lune. The melody spilled into the air, threading through the room like a whisper, delicate but unyielding. As her confidence built, the music swelled, and her fingers moved with a grace that belied her inner turmoil. The notes flowed from her like a confession, every chord carrying a piece of her journey, the sacrifices her mother had made, the long hours she spent practicing in a tiny, cluttered room, the weight of dreams put on hold but never truly forgotten. The diners gradually fell silent. The previous hum of chatter gave way to a reverent stillness. Even Raymond, who had been whispering to his companions moments earlier, fell quiet. Maya didn't need to look up to feel the shift in the atmosphere. The mockery that had filled the room earlier had evaporated, replaced by something she couldn't quite identify. Perhaps awe, perhaps respect. The music soared, and Maya let herself dissolve into it. For the first time in years, she wasn't a waitress struggling to make ends meet or a dreamer weighed down by life's realities. She was simply an artist. Her fingers danced effortlessly across the keys, pulling emotions from the depths of her soul and casting them into the air, raw and vivid, lingering like smoke. As the final chord reverberated through the room, everything fell still. For a moment, there was no sound, only the fading resonance of the piano. Maya sat frozen, her hands resting on the keys, unsure of what to expect next. Then, as if awakened from a trance, the audience burst into applause. The sound was thunderous, echoing off the walls and filling the space with a warmth Maya hadn't anticipated. Some diners rose from their seats, clapping with an enthusiasm that brought a sheen of tears to Maya's eyes. Her coworkers, who had watched the entire performance in awe, joined in the ovation, their faces glowing with pride. Off to the side, her colleagues added to the applause, their admiration unmistakable. Meanwhile, Raymond remained seated. His smug grin had vanished, replaced by a mix of emotions Maya couldn't quite read: shock, discomfort, maybe even a hint of begrudging respect. He raised his hands and began to clap, but the slow, almost reluctant sound of his applause was a stark contrast to the thunderous cheers filling the room. But even Raymond's half-hearted acknowledgement couldn't dull what Maya had just accomplished. She had reclaimed her voice, her identity, and no amount of condescension could strip that away. As the applause gradually faded, the room seemed to collectively release the tension it had been holding. Maya stood slowly, her knees still trembling, but her posture tall and unyielding. She took a moment to truly see the faces before her, no longer merely an audience, but witnesses to her triumph. Their expressions held something new: admiration, respect, and awe. She didn't meet Raymond's gaze right away. Instead, she turned to the diners who had clapped the loudest and gave a small, gracious nod, a faint smile on her lips. What she felt wasn't pride but relief. Relief that she hadn't let fear or doubt silence her. Finally, as though drawn by an unseen pull, her eyes shifted to Raymond. He remained at the table, his hands clasped in front of him, his earlier bravado completely gone. In its place was a carefully neutral expression, as if he couldn't decide whether to admit his mistake or hold on to his arrogance. "Well," Raymond said at last, his voice louder than necessary, shattering the fragile quiet that had blanketed the room. "That was unexpected." He let out a soft laugh, though it lacked the confidence he typically exuded. "I guess real talent can come from the most unexpected places." The remark landed awkwardly, met with uneasy glances from his companions, who didn't know whether to laugh or remain silent. Maya tilted her head slightly, studying him. His words were intended as a compliment, but they felt hollow, weighed down by his reluctance to fully acknowledge what had just transpired. "Thank you," Maya replied, her tone steady and even. There was no malice in her voice, but no warmth either. She wouldn't let him pull her back into the smallness he'd tried to impose on her. Her performance had already spoken louder than any words could. Raymond cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable under the weight of the room's attention. He gestured for the waiter to bring him another drink, a clumsy attempt to regain control. "You've got quite a gift," he added, his words almost grudging. Maya nodded, her gaze steady and unflinching. "Everyone has a gift," she said, her voice firm and deliberate. It's how you choose to use it that makes the difference. The room seemed to hold its breath once more, the subtle sting of Maya's words lingering in the air. It wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. But it was enough. Raymond shifted in his seat, his usual air of dominance slipping with every passing second. The diners, sensing the change, began to return to their meals, but the energy in the room had shifted entirely. Where there had once been the quiet hum of privilege and pretense, there was now something richer, an unspoken respect, maybe even admiration, for the waitress who had reminded them of the power of authenticity. But Raymond wasn't just humiliated, he was exposed. No amount of charm could shield him from the truth everyone in the room now saw. Maya stepped away from the piano, the weight of the moment settling in her chest. Her colleagues greeted her with quiet smiles and subtle nods of encouragement as she returned to her station. She still had a job to finish, but something about her posture had changed. Her head was held a little higher, her movements more confident. Deliberately, Raymond's table had quieted. His entourage, who had laughed so freely at her expense earlier, now avoided eye contact. Their conversation had dwindled to an awkward murmur, the bravado that had once filled their corner of the restaurant evaporating into uncomfortable silence. The night continued, but Maya felt lighter. Each step she took through the dining room seemed more purposeful, her confidence blooming in a way she hadn't expected. As she refilled glasses and cleared plates, patrons stopped her to offer kind words. "You are amazing," an older woman said softly as Maya set down a coffee cup. "I don't think I've ever heard anything so moving." "Don't stop," another man added. "You've got something special. Keep at it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Maya thanked them with quiet humility, her heart swelling with gratitude. These weren't just compliments. They were affirmations of everything she had worked for, everything she had dreamed of becoming. Raymond, however, wasn't so gracious. As Maya approached his table to deliver the check, he looked up at her with an expression that was somewhere between annoyance and reluctant admiration. "You've made your point," he said, his tone clipped. "No need to rub it in." Maya paused, meeting his gaze directly. "It was never about proving anything to you," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "I just wanted to play." Raymond had no response. He fidgeted with his drink, his once commanding presence reduced to an awkward shuffle. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and everyone at the table knew it. As Raymond scribbled his signature on the check, one of his companions, a younger man with a softer demeanor, looked at Maya and said, "You are amazing." "Truly." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of humanity in a group she had written off as shallow. "Thank you," she replied, offering a small smile before walking away. The night ended with Raymond and his group leaving quietly, their usual grand exit replaced by a hasty retreat. Maya watched them go, feeling neither triumph nor bitterness. She wasn't thinking about Raymond anymore, her mind was already on the next step. The tips from that night were unusually generous, enough to cover her rent, and leave a little extra for the piano lessons she had been postponing. As she locked up and walked home, the crisp air filled her lungs, and Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years: certainty. She wasn't just a waitress, and she wasn't just a dreamer. She was an artist. And nothing, not mocking words, financial struggles, or fear, could take that away from her. Sitting on the worn bench in her small apartment, Maya's fingers glided over the keys of her old upright piano. The sound wasn't as crisp or rich as the grand piano at La Fontaine, but it didn't matter. The music came from her heart, just as it always had. That night had shifted something within her. Not just a moment of triumph, but a realization. Her talent wasn't something she needed to hide or justify. It was hers, and it was enough. In the days that followed, the events at the restaurant became something of a local story. Patrons who had witnessed her performance shared the tale, and word began to spread. A few days later, Maya received a call from a man who had been dining that night, a music producer visiting from Nashville. He wasn't offering fame or fortune, but he was offering a chance to record a demo. A step toward something she had only dared to dream of. Maya agreed. Not because she believed it would change her life overnight, but because it felt like a door opening, one she wasn't afraid to walk through. For years, she had let fear and doubt whisper lies into her mind, telling her she wasn't enough, that her dreams were too big. But now, she saw the truth. Resilience and authenticity were her greatest strengths. The incident with Raymond Grayson wasn't just a humiliating spectacle turned victory. It was a reminder of the power of integrity. Raymond, for all his wealth and bravado, had nothing that could diminish her. He represented every voice of doubt she had ever faced, and she silenced him with nothing but the purity of her craft. To anyone watching Maya's story, her message was clear. Never let someone else define your worth. The world is full of Raymonds, people who project their insecurities onto others to feel powerful. But true power comes from staying rooted in who you are and letting your passions speak louder than their ridicule. As she closed the piano lid and rested her hands on the faded wood, Maya smiled. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like it had truly begun. What about you? What dream have you been holding back on because of fear or doubt? Don't wait for someone like Raymond to test you. Take your step forward now. If Maya's story inspired you, subscribe for more stories of resilience and triumph. Your story could be next.